Alrighty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cafe Scientifique from all of us here at SFU's Faculty of Science. My name is Stevie Benish, and I'm the Manager of Outreach and Engagement in the Faculty of Science. If you're one of our cafe regulars, thank you for joining us again. And if you're new here, welcome, and thank you for joining us for the first time. This is our first Cafe Scientifique of this academic year, and we're really excited to be kicking it off with such a great topic. For those of you who don't know, Cafe Scientifique is a Faculty of Science public seminar series where our presenters share their current research and how it impacts our local communities or the larger society. We typically host around 6 discussions a year, and they're all virtual. They're also all recorded, so you can view them from our website. If you miss one, or if you would like to share this or another talk with any friends or family, that's also encouraged. And we love to hear from you. So please stay in touch with us. After this event, you will receive a feedback link via email. And if you're interested, you can also join our mailing list and you'll receive updates on any future events we have. So I'd just like to start us off today in a good way by acknowledging that I am privileged to be joining you all today from the unceded and ancestral lands of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples. We thank them for having cared for and being stewards of the lands and waters since long before our time. If you know whose territory you are currently on, I would like to invite you to take a moment to reflect on that. And if you don't know whose land you are on, a great resource that we encourage people to check out is the website native-land.ca. And there you can familiarize yourself with the Indigenous peoples whose land you are able to live and work on. Just have a couple little house rules and kind of go over what the format of this evening will be like. So the talk will be in 2 parts, and there'll be a dedicated Q&A time after each part, but you're also encouraged to ask any clarifying questions kind of throughout the talk. And there's a couple different ways you can ask questions. So you can use the raise hand function, which in the bottom menu of your Zoom there, it'll be under the React. So if you click on that, you'll see raise hand. And then we can unmute you and you can ask your question. Alternatively, if you would prefer, you can type your question in the chat and I can ask that question. And we would love to see your faces. So during the Q&A or throughout the talk, you're encouraged to have your cameras on. And if you happen to notice that your name is either guest or something in the list, we encourage you to rename yourself just so when we're calling on you, we know who to call on. Just other little details, as you saw the notice at the beginning, this event is being recorded, and as I mentioned, it will be shared broadly. And also the live transcript is available for your convenience, so please make use of that. Okay, housekeeping stuff out of the way, let's get to tonight's discussion. So I am very pleased to be introducing Dr. Andy Hoffer, who is a professor in biomedical physiology and kinesiology, and the director of the Neurokinesiology Lab. Dr. Hoffer's research focuses on how the nervous system controls movements and on the development of medical devices and assistive methods to restore independent movement control in individuals affected by paralysis, amputations, and other neurological disorders. His research in these areas has resulted in over 130 granted patents and the founding of 3 biomedical device companies that were spun out from his SFU lab. And while his research has primary medical applications, I know that you're all here tonight to hear about his research on golf and to learn how you can use it to improve your own game next time that you are on the greens. So without further ado, over to you, Andy.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to present on this topic, which, as you mentioned, is not my usual line of research, but it has been my more recent line of research in the past several years. And even though I've been interested in helping people with serious medical issues, I think that trying to help people who have problems with golf is also helps their health, because we'll see examples during this talk. So that was a motivating reason for doing it. I'm going to share some slides. For the first of the 2 talks is on putting. Um, I could share it earlier. It's going to take a little while now to do it. Should be visible now. Is it?
Yes, that looks great.
Okay, super. So this study we did here at SFU, and all my co-authors here that are listed were at the time undergraduate students in either BPK, kinesiology, or engineering. One um, was at UBC, but it was a lot of fun because they would do research projects. And ST, who is the first author here, was did an undergraduate thesis, and she also, ST at the time, was in the SFU golf team. So participated in more than one way and a helpful way. So this talk is pretty much what I presented a year ago at the World Scientific Congress of Golf in Loughborough, England. And that was a lot of fun to do as well because it was to an audience that I had never really interacted with. Um, so, as background, I don't need to explain if you are a golfer that there are things that can go wrong with your normal control of movement that interfere with the ability to play golf, or in particular to putt and to chip, as we'll see. Um, Tremors that are involuntary, and in particular task-specific intention tremors, like in this example that I'm going to turn on here. Here is a very good friend who was actually the motivator for starting this study. His name was Jerry, and as you can see, the moment he held on to a club to putt or any club, his hands would start to tremble, but they didn't before, as you can see here. So that's what a task-specific intention tremor is. It can happen not just to golfers, it can happen to musicians too, and so on. And that's very disturbing because it, of course, interferes with the execution of fine, controlled movements. And another thing that golfers are very aware of is the so-called the yips. Um, the clinical term is focal dystonia, which is an unwanted jerky motion, usually in the hands and wrists, that ruins a shot. And it can happen well under pressure, but not necessarily. And by the way, these are not, the yips can happen in young as well as older golfers. They're more related to having spent a lot of time playing golf. So they're more related to experience with golf than to age, for example. So these were the background in wanting to do this study to see how we could help perhaps somebody with these kinds of issues putt better. Now, historically, um, one very famous professional golfer, Bernhard Langer, has had issues with yips for a long time. So as far back as 1993, he modified his grip, as shown here, to what's called the arm lock grip, where um, you hold the grip of the club uh, firmly against your lead forearm. You can use your other hand to press it in there. Or, as another famous, more current, well, Werner Langer is still winning and the senior to it. Bryson DeChambeau also uses an arm lock kind of grip, the one opened last year. And there are others, Matt Kuchar, Webb Simpson, Keegan Bradley. They all are using some modified form of arm lock grips, and there are others. So the question we had actually with Jerry was, should we try this? So our hypothesis for this study was, would arm locking improve putting performance by golfers affected by tremors or yips? Because when you hold the club like this, you get rid of the unwanted excess movement by hands and wrists, which are the prone to yips. So how did we do this study? There's going to be a lot of information here, but so we engaged 104 participants, of which 27 were golfers who said they had some issue with tremors or yips. 50 were golfers who said they didn't, but that's not necessarily a guarantee, but they said they didn't have issues. And another 27 participants were non-golfers. They were usually SFU students who were non-golfers, but some older as well. And the age ranges were quite wide, 19 to 80, 20 to 83, 19 to 78, so pretty similar. The numbers of females and males that we could recruit were not exactly the same, but we had representation from female golfers as well as male golfers. And the handicap range, which is a measure of your proficiency as a golfer, it was very wide from -3, handicap -3, which means that you're better than par, to 32 among the yippers or the people with tremors, and 0 to 38 among the other golfers. So quite a wide range. And we set up a lab here at SFU, indoor lab, carpeted area, uh, quite small. It used to be a storage closet, no windows. It's about 25 feet long, the full length of the lab. And we set it up so that we had a hole, a single hole, and we had 6 tee areas or places from which we putted. And I can see that among our participants in the talk, at least one was one of the 104 participants. So thank you for coming back to see what the total picture is like. So there were some holes were short, 5 foot, 6 foot, 7 foot long. Some holes were what we call the longer holes, 13, 14, 15 foot long. We couldn't have any longer holes because we would have to go out the door into the hallway, and it was noisy. It was carpeted, and we had a bit of a ramp here so that we could sink a hole because it was a concrete floor. So it was a slightly uphill putt over some of the length of it. We had an overhead camera here, and we also had cameras looking at the motions of the club and the hands, the arms, player. It was a fairly fast surface, a stimp 13.5, which is what greens are in championship golf, around that. It's pretty fast moving ball, so you couldn't hit it very hard. If you hit it too hard and it went past the hole, it would end up in a gutter that we built here just before the back wall of the room. And if you went to the gutter, then this is coming, but here you had to hit again, and you would hit from the 6 foot distance. It's just the rule we had. So every participant played 4 rounds of 18 holes, and the scorecard is here. So you could see the holes were in a given sequence, this arbitrary sequence, but actually it was modeled after the Pitt Meadows golf course here in town, Pitt Meadows, where the first hole is a par 5, a long par 5. So here we had one of our longer holes was the number 1, and then the number 2 was shorter, number 3 was shorter hole, and so on. So somehow we played from all these distances, I guess 6 distances, 3 times from every distance for 18 holes. And we would play one round with a short putter, and we're going to show you what they are, and second round with an arm uh, arm lock putter, which is a longer putter, and then a third round with a short putter again, and then the arm lock putter again, and then we would keep track of all the scores per hole, and also the distances to the hole, or how many times the ball went in the hole, but also the leave. If the ball did not go in the hole, we would measure the coordinates where the ball ended up from the information from the overhead camera. So we said arbitrarily that the short holes were par 1. So if you're good, you should put it in the hole from these shorter distances, and the longer holes realistically par 2. Now that you could get a birdie if you sank it from the longer distance. Must putt again until you hole out. No gimmies. So if you miss the hole, you have to come back and go and putt again from wherever it is. And the 2 putters that we used, and it was just before COVID, so we didn't have issues with sharing equipment, but we used a standard length putter, which was 34 inches long, and arm lock putter, which was very similar, but it was extended with a longer grip. So it was 37 inches long. The grip was turned so that the flat part was against your lead arm for comfort, and it was bent so that there was a 4-degree. That was to make up for the fact that the shaft leans forward when you are using this type of putter. But aside from that, they were the same original putter. Right? We also used that's in the last 75, I think, of the participants. We used a motion sensor called blast motion, which was attached to the top of the grip that measured 11 different parameters or features. But the ones that we ended up being more interested in, because they were significantly different and difficult to control, were the length of the backstroke, the impact stroke speed that would determine how far the ball goes, really, and then changes in 3 angles: the face rotation, the face loft, and the face lie. You can see at the bottom that you can hit the ball not squarely if that's what you want to do, but it's sometimes difficult to control the angle, and I mean it's 3 different ways that you can mishit the ball. You can hit it in a descending blow or ascending, or the putter may have the heel up, or maybe flat, square, or the toe may be up. But in those cases, the ball will take different trajectories, so that accounts for different reasons for missing. Yeah, so it was 74 participants where we had the blast sensor attached, and then the rest is just too technical to go into, but how we analyzed the data. So our results, what did we learn? So for each participant, we graphed, remember, each participant played 18 holes 4 times, twice with each putter. So we wanted to see the difference of putting 36 holes with the standard putter and with the arm lock putter. So we graphed the scores against each other, and the 45-degree line would mean that they had exactly the same score. with the two putters. Here we have the results of 9 participants, and they are young golfers with tremor or yips. So this is a subset of all the participants. And those young golfers with tremor or yips, on average, tended to take fewer strokes with the arm lock putter. So their points are below the line, below the 45-degree line. So some of them were much better. Here, these were much better with the arm lock putter than with the standard putter. Here, this one, for example, had 60 strokes with the standard putter, but 55 strokes with the arm lock. So shaved 5 strokes on their score. And on average, this population was 2.1 strokes better. So the average with the arm lock was 57.6, par 54, but it's difficult because it's difficult to make so many holes in par. And the average was 59.7 strokes with a standard putter. So there was a significant improvement in, because of course fewer is better when you're putting or in golf. So now that was for one subpopulation, the young golfers with tremor or yips, but we had actually 6 subpopulations initially. We had younger and older, we had with yippers and non-yippers, and then we had the non-golfers, younger and older. So when we look at all of those, the young ones are here, and now we look in addition to the senior golfers with tremors or yips. There were 18 of them. And again, we see that the average was 66 strokes with the standard putter and 63 or 3 strokes fewer with the arm lock. They're all plotted here. Each of these is an individual player. Here is the 45-degree line, which is almost invisible, I'm sorry. But what your eye will tell you is that most of these are below the line or better with the arm lock putter. And some of them were remarkably much better, like 10 or 12 strokes better with the arm lock than with their conventional putter that they were used to use and grip. And now what about the people who said they did not have tremors or yips? So here are the 14 young golfers who said they had no tremor or yips issues, and look at it. They're pretty much all of them are above the line, which means that they putted better with their own standard grip and a short putter than with the arm lock. And the difference was quite large. It was 3.8 strokes worse with the arm lock. So it's the opposite. Okay, so that's kind of eye-opening. And then what about the older golfers who did not have issues with tremors or yips? Same story, not quite as large a difference. The difference was 1.7 strokes better, or fewer strokes when they used the standard putter than when they used the arm lock putter. So, what this told us is, well, it's not like the explanation for this result is not that the arm lock putter is better, because it should be better for everyone. In fact, it was worse for golfers who did not normally have issues putting. And then what about the non-golfers, young and old, young and older, senior? So here, the interesting thing is that some were above the line, some were below the line. Among the 21 young ones, but on average they were smack on the line. So again, no intrinsic difference in the equipment, just that they were equally. Their scores were on average much higher. Look at this: 73 strokes with one putter 73 strokes on average with the other putter, 73.9, 73.1. So, but no different, not major difference. And the senior non-golfers who did not have tremors, sorry, the senior non-golfers who were not golfers, on average, they actually were better with the arm lock, 2.7 strokes better, 74 versus 76.7 when they used the arm lock putter. But in looking at their individual characteristics, 4 of the 6 said that they had some sort of tremors. So they were not golfers, but they had tremors and they putted better with the arm lock. So again, taking the wrists out of play. So this is shown again. And so we said, okay, we really have 3 populations. Forget about the difference between young and old. That's not a big difference in performance. The bigger difference is, do they have issues of tremors or yips, or they say they don't have issues. So we really have 3 populations. And then we grouped them that way, and we got an overall population benefit of 2.7 strokes gained for the golfers with tremor or yips, and 2.3 strokes worse using the arm lock for the golfers without tremor or yips. So, and the non-golfers were just about the same, an average of 0 difference with the two. So the message then is, this helps those who need help. Now, good golfers who are good putters, or golfers who are good putters, are not going to get any better necessarily by switching to the arm lock. But golfers who have issues like yips or tremors, and their hands and wrists get in the way, they gain by switching to arm lock. So, and here's one example of a severe yipper, 67-year-old male, participant number 110. And he typically used what's called a claw grip, which is another way that people try to get over the problem with the grip. The standard length putter for past 2 years. And so he came into the lab, and you can see his scorecard. First round with the short putter and his own grip. He is front 9, 21 strokes, back 9, 18, 39 strokes, par 27. So that's 12 over par. Second round was the first time ever with the arm lock putter. He had never tried it before. He had 17, 16, 33. So 6 shots better than with his standard grip. And then he played a third round again with the standard putter. He birdied number 1, which is a long hole. He birdied it. In spite of that, he had, again, 21, 20, 41, 14 over par, even a little bit worse. And then the second time with the arm, he did just about as well as the first time, 16, 17, 33, 6 over par. So we did this to see whether things were consistent or not, and also whether there was any learning by doing this, because maybe you learn something from using the other putter, which can get transferred to your own. Didn't happen in this case. And then we looked at, so where did he gain strokes? So this is the average on the first round and the third round with a standard putter. In the short holes, you needed 2.2 putts on average for the 9 short holes, and he needed 2.1 putts for the 9 long holes. And then the third round was very similar again. So with the arm lock putter, the big difference was his performance in the short holes, because now what used to take 2.2 is down to 1.4 in round one, and in round three, pretty similar. So he brought his score down from 26 over par to 12 over par. So he actually gained 14 strokes, 14 fewer putts using the arm lock. And where were they gained? They entirely gained in the short holes. He sank 14 more short putts with the arm lock. But that was remarkable. So he missed short putts with his regular grip, but he started to make all those putts, and that made a huge difference. So we looked at the entire population, comparing the performance in the 18 long holes versus the 18 short holes, and we got something consistent, not as remarkable as this one. We showed you the best, of course, the biggest difference, but on average, there were similar differences. So golfers without tremor or yips, again, they lost 1.3 strokes in the long holes, and they lost 1 stroke in the short holes. Not much difference, but the golfers with tremor or yips, when we group all 27 of them, they gained 0.5 strokes in the long holes, and they gained 2.1, or most of the strokes they gained in the short holes. And the non-golfers, well, they gained a little in the long holes, but it's not significant because the numbers are not that different, and they lost some in the short holes. So the important thing is what happened to the golfers with tremors or yips. On average, they benefited. And they mainly benefited by making more of these. These are the putts that really hurt when you miss them. 5, 6, 7 foot. Those are the ones you think you should make, but if you don't make them, that costs you a stroke, and that hurts the most. And that's where the bigger difference was. So now to look at the biomechanics of why is there a difference? And as I mentioned, with this arm lock grip, you kind of freeze the wrists. You cannot really turn your wrists very much. So if you have a yip or if you have tremors that affect your hands and wrists, it's not going to matter so much. And so this is what's shown here. Now, this is going to be difficult to see, but we're looking first at changes in the face angle, the rotation of the face. Just even you want to be square when you hit the ball, but it's hard to control, and often you hit with the face a little bit open or a little bit closed, and of course the ball doesn't go where you want it to go. And so this is one of the people. No, this was actually Jerry, who had the severe intention tremor. He was age 79 at the time. He was a really good golfer in his youth. The handicap had gone up, but he had a very large range of rotation angles when he hit the ball. So this shows on the x-axis here is the length of a putt, 5 foot, 10 foot, 15 foot. So here we have, I'm not sure you see all the data points, but they're all plotted here. Each is one shot, and where the ball and what was the face angle, putter face angle at the time of the strike. And this is with a short putter. So these are a large range of open, no, closed, sorry, closed. So this is positive. So this is the close to face at the time of hitting the ball. And here is with the arm lock putter, rounds 2 and 4. Same idea, but now you can see that the spread of these is much less. So this is much closer. Ideally, it should be 0. It should be along the x-axis, but it's hard to do. So he had the face slightly closed, but not nearly as bad, maybe a third as bad as with the short putter. Same with the other two. The loft angle, here it was at +2 degrees, So he actually was hitting the ball with an ascending stroke using a short putter, and with the arm length, he hit the ball more consistently, less than 1 degree off. And the lie angle, which is where the toe is up or the heel is up, that was, again, a large error bars here because it's a large spread of values with a short putter, but much more consistent, near around 0 with the arm lock. And in comparison, another participant, male, age 67, a low handicap, very good golfer, not a yipper. And in his case, he also had non-zero angles here, but with much less spread using the short putter, which he used. He also had about 2 degrees of ascending motion, and his lie angle was pretty good. It's almost perfect. With the arm lock, he actually was better, um, slightly better, closer to 0. This was about the same, the loft angle, and this one was almost perfect here. So even really good golfers will benefit a little bit, even though it may not change their score. Mhm. And finally, the last thing that we noticed is that um, here is participant 63, which I think is the one that had such huge improvement, um, Yipper. And then we noticed that he used very short, quick backstrokes with the short putter, just very quick. So we measured the time and the length of the backstrokes. So this was um, the backstroke length in inches and the impact stroke speed at the time they hit the ball. So these are all 4 rounds plotted here. There are 4 lines. This is round 1, which is a little pink one. And this is round 2, blue. This is round 3, the red one, and round 4. And remember that rounds 2 and 4 are with the arm lock, and 1 and 3 are with a short putter. So to generate an impact stroke speed of 2 miles per hour, which is what you need to hit a putt that is 7 feet long. Because if you hit it faster, if a putter is coming faster than you hit it longer, if it's not coming fast enough, the ball won't reach it, the hole. So that's about correct for a 7-foot putt. You can see that in round 1, the backswing length was very short, was 4.5 inches. Inches. In round 2, which is the first time he used arm length putter, the length was quite a bit longer at 6 inches. Round 3, you can see a bit of an improvement here, close to an inch or 3/4 of an inch or so improvement. He didn't notice he was doing this. This was instinctive, but he was actually starting to take the club back a little slower and a little longer, which is better, um, even with a short putter. And then with the arm length putter in round 4, he learned to take it back further. We didn't tell him to do that. This is something he did as he was getting used to the clubs. And when we measured the backstrokes of the best golfers, they were all extremely consistent and quite long. The better golfers take the club back much farther and slower, and then more consistent. So he went from a very stabby, quick backswings to something more controlled. And we found this more generally too. So in summary, um, of 27 golfers that were afflicted by yips or tremors, 17, 63% or 2/3, needed fewer putts using the arm lock grip. And that was the first time they used this. They had never encountered this method before. And also, of the 50 golfers who were not yippers had not tremor. 12, which was 24% or a quarter, also had needed fewer putts with the arm lock. That was surprising to them. Some of them were actually quite a bit better with their arm lock. And the other thing we found generally is that all three putter face angles at impact were better controlled, as well as backswing lengths, better controlled with the arm lock putter. Really by all of the participants, but it made a bigger difference in the ones who had issues controlling face angle. The last thing is that we asked participants, so how did it feel? What do you think? And after the first round with the arm lock putter, people say, this is uncomfortable. I don't like it. It's not natural. I prefer to hold the club my way. But this is weird. But after the second round, the fourth round, the second round with the arm lock, and when they saw their results, because we posted they knew how they were scoring because the scorecard was being displayed, so they could tell how they were doing. So they generally they said, this is okay. I said, I can get used to this. So that was nice. Of course, you have to get used to it. This was about a 90-minute session, so you can expect that if you go home with it and start using it in a few weeks, you'll get really comfortable with it. But so the message is that for golfers who have issues putting consistently and they use a short putter and they use one of their typical grips, then we recommend that you try the arm lock grip because it can make a difference. So I gave this talk at the conference, the World Scientific Congress of Golf. And I didn't realize, but it got picked up by Golf Digest, the magazine. And so they published, and this was this year in April, they actually did a write-up. But a new study reveals about a method that beats the putting yips. And they also did a podcast. Should you try arm lock putting? This study says yes. Which is nice. They never talked to me about it. They did it on their own. But I'm glad that they liked it. And you can hear some links. You can see them. So I don't know if there were any questions throughout. I didn't see any prompts, but this is the time to ask questions if you have any, before we move on to the second study.
Yes, so if anyone has questions, please feel free to raise your hand and we can unmute you, or just type it in the chat and I can ask it.
Okay. Hi, Klaus. Tanya. Actually, I should thank Klaus, who is here in the audience, for pointing out that Golf Digest had done this write-up because I didn't see it until Klaus let me know. And what did you say, Klaus? This is better than being on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine or something like that. To have this kind of exposure.
So
You're muted, but I don't know if you can unmute. Anyway, thank you for being here.
There we go. Hi, hey Andy.
Yeah, hi.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. We really enjoyed it, and nice to see some real numbers on what we feel on the course. But it's always a feeling how to get the right putt out there.
Yeah.
With the it showed up on Golf Digest, and I figured that's something that you definitely need to see there.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it, but thank you. And
where are you heading with it now? I guess you have a second presentation now. We looking forward to that. So we would like to see what the outcome is, so we can get some better scores, right?
Well, the outcome is if you have problems putting, try arm lock. because it will allow you to put the ball closer to where you want it to go. Not
I did
perfect.
miss the first few minutes, but was there a definition of the tremor and the yips, a sort of quantified method?
No, I mean, no, we didn't try to quantify it, but we just looked at the consequences during putting of having tremors in the hips, and they were quite substantial. The, the talk is being recorded, so you can look at it again, but no, we didn't try to do a clinical diagnosis or anything like that. We just went by what people would say that is their problem. And we noted tremors if they were, and what kind of tremors. There were different kinds of tremors. Intention tremor, cerebellar, Parkinson's. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter. They all interfere with your ability to control the fine movement, right?
Well, I think it would be interesting. I am starting to suffer a bit from internal tremor, and my doctor says the only treatment for that is a good shot of alcohol, but that's a different story kind of thing. But the internal tremor can manifest itself on a target tremor. So once you reach the target, the intended movement, you then end up with a yip or an involuntary movement at the very end. Whereas some of the things that you mentioned, Parkinson and other ones, have a more basic frequency. So I think it could be interesting to look at the neurological or the mechanical movement of the tremor itself, quantify what kind of tremor is it that affects our game here.
Yeah, and I'm sure that in more detail with different types of tremors, the benefits may be different, and maybe the solution should be even more specific. But the
Okay.
main thing that I think of is tremors that affect the small distal muscles that control the hands and wrists are the ones that you can more easily block by using the arm lock grip, because then the movement, the extra motion in the wrists is not going to be such a problem. And with the arm lock, you actually hit the ball with a more pendular stroke, like using your upper body. And so the moment of inertia is much larger, so the tremors are not going to affect the motion of the larger parts of the body as they do the smaller, the hands. I think that's why it works. Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for those questions. We do have a question in the chat as well.
Okay.
This is asking, what percentage of the time do you use the arm lock grip when you're putting?
Okay. My answer will depend on who is asking the question. Who is it?
It might be your daughter.
Oh, okay. So yeah, thanks for the question, Katrina. So I switched to arm lock some years back. Well, I was using arm lock around this time because of this study, but I'm not a big yipper. So I more recently, say this past year, I switched back to, I still use a longer putter, but a modified grip, which is not necessarily arm lock, because I feel comfortable with it. But I am very careful to swing the putter off my upper body in a pendular way and to hold my wrists very steady. And I don't have a tremor, so it's okay.
As I imagine there's lots of things you take away from all the different things that you can kind of incorporate into your game to improve as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you learn from the subjects a lot. So, okay, is there another question, or should I move on to the second talk?
I think in interest of time, let's move on to the second, as I don't see any other questions at the moment, but there will be a little time at the end as well.
Yeah. Okay, so this one was also presented at the same conference, but we did it as a different group of students participated, and we did it outdoors because this one we did during COVID. So now we could not use the putting lab. And In fact, we wanted to do 120 subjects in the first study, the putting study, and we got cut short by COVID that closed down the university and the labs. So we ended it with what we had. And then we decided, okay, let's do something outdoors. And so we did a chipping study. Now, here, the question was um, chipping and putting, by the way, are the two most uh, costly parts of the game in terms of the number of strokes that that you end up chipping or putting out of a round. About half of all your strokes, or maybe more, are chips or putts. So of course, driving is important too. Everything is important, but in terms of the consequences of missing a chip or a putt, they can be very big for a score. So the question we asked here was compared using a wedge, a hybrid club, and this is totally out of the blue, a hybrid using the arm lock grip. Okay, I'll go into the details. So now the background is, as I started to say, most golfers have problems chipping with a wedge. What's a wedge? A wedge is a club that has a very steep slope, very lofted. So it catches a ball and hits it way up. The ball goes up in the air and lands on the green. A chip is a shot from near the green where you want to put the ball onto the green as close to the hole as possible. But with this large lofted wedges, it's easy to miss. And there's two big ways to miss. One is to hit the ball fat, or you hit behind the ball and the club just dies hitting the ground. You miss-hit it completely. Or almost worse, you hit it thin. Now you hit the ball with the lead edge of the club. You hit it a little bit on the top, and the ball flies off over the green. So both are terrible shots. And so to hit it perfectly, it actually takes a lot of skill and practice. Not that it cannot be done, of course, but it's challenging. Now, what about if you used a hybrid club, which is it's like a long iron, but it looks like a wood, and the loft is much less, 15 to 28 degrees versus 46 to 64 typically. So now you hit a different kind of a stroke. You don't try to hit it up high so much as a lower lancing shot that will roll onto the green and roll on until it reaches the hole. Of course, you cannot do that if there is an obstacle you have to fly the ball over, like a bunker or something. Then you have to use a wedge. But if it's wide open, you don't have to use a wedge. You can use something smarter. Now, some people putt from outside the green, and that's okay, but it's a little tricky because if it's a long stretch of tall, long grass, it's hard to judge how hard to hit it. Sometimes the ball will not get it to the green like you did. So to lift it a little bit, but to use a putting motion, which is what we recommended to use with a hybrid, that was what we said, let's try this. So because it was during COVID, we didn't want to share our clubs with anybody. So we told everybody, if you come to the study, bring your favorite wedge that you typically chip around the green. And if you have a hybrid, bring a hybrid, or if not, bring like a 5-wood or a 7-wood or something. So it looks a little bit the same. Now, we also thought that there could be an issue of people who have tremors or yips can also affect chips, and it does. So that was one of the reasons we wanted to test this thing. And so that's why we decided, okay, we got good results with arm lock grip for putting. Now, what about arm lock grip with a hybrid? See if can we chip with a hybrid using the arm lock. Anyway, I had never done that myself, and I don't know anyone did that either. So we decided to try it, however. So we thought that it could be beneficial, but to be tested. So then we tested 3 chipping methods. The wedge, here's our, this is actually ST, who was a participant in the first study. Here, sorry, it was a researcher in the first study, was a participant in the second study. She was in the SFU golf team. 56 degrees wedge, standard grip. She's a good chipper. Here is ST with her 22-degree hybrid and the standard grip. And here is ST with her hybrid and the awkward arm lock grip with her hybrid. And so we had people chip using all 3 ways. And in this case, we recruited 40 people. We wanted 64, I think, but we ended up having such good results, we decided we have enough. 15 female, age range 20 to 74, males 22 to 86. And again, the handicap index, or the full range from 0.5 to 38. In this case, they were all golfers. We did not recruit non-golfers to chip. It would have been a nightmare. Would have been difficult. So most were members of the Pitt Meadows Golf Club where we did the study, but not all. 3 were members of the SFU golf team, and 11 out of the 40 said they had issues with yips when chipping. 6 also had some tremor. So we had each participant chip 120 times, 40 with a wedge, 40 with a hybrid, 40 with a hybrid with arm lock, but we interleaved those trials, as I'll explain. So first we had part A, total of 30 balls at a single target, which was 48 feet away. You can see here's the full length of this green, practice green. And we kept track of, you see, it's a team member with a ruler. We kept track of the distance from where the ball ended up and the hole. So 30 at this faraway target, and then a second part, another 30. So 10 with each club. So a total of 60 balls were hit to a single target with the 3 different combinations of club and grip. We used the blast sensor again to get data about the 11 parameters. And then for the second part of the study, the people hit another 60 balls, 20 with each club and grip, but now to 4 different targets, 10, 20, 30, 40 feet, and rotate. So actually we did 40, 30, 20, 10, 40, 30, 20, 10 with 1 club, and so on. And so we kept track of the distance, the polar coordinates, where the ball ended up. Not just the distance, but where it was, if it was past the hole or left or right, short. And then we used a modified method from something Peltz did, which he really studied chipping in great detail. So we considered circles that were not drawn on the ground, but we kept track of whether a ball was less than 6 foot away from the pin or from the target. That was half a point. If it was less than 4 feet, it was 1 point. 3 feet, 2 points. 2 feet, 3 points. Within a foot, 4 points, and if it hit the target, 5 points. So that means that you hit 120 balls and you had a chance of making 5 points max each time. So a maximum of 600 points would be perfect. But we kept track of how they did with each of those combinations. So here are the results. Now, again, for a single participant, it was our oldest male participant, age 86. He was a 30 handicap, no tremor. He was a good chipper, actually. So these are the results of his 30 chips from 48 feet, with 10 with his sandwich, 10 with a 4 hybrid, 10 with his 4 hybrid and the arm lock. This is the target in each case, and where the ball positions. And he made 11 points with his wedge. So these balls here made points because they were within. These balls out here, they were 0 because they were too far off target. But look at the hybrid. Essentially, all the balls were a lot close. They actually made 14.5 points. And here, the hybrid and the arm lock is pretty good too. Most balls are pretty close, generally a little short of target. This one is short, but he still made more points with the hybrid and the arm lock than with the wedge. 1.5 more points. And this is an entire population of 40 participants. So what we see here is that the x-axis is the participant handicap. So the lowest handicap participants are plotted at this end, the highest handicap. So our handicap 30 participant would have been one of these two. And this is a number of total points made in 120 chips, which for the very best golfers was about 300 points. Now the maximum possible is 600 points. So that's actually pretty good. And then, so this shows that better golfers did better chipping in our study, which is something you would predict, but this confirms it. So the highest handicap golfers made 100 points instead of 300 points. So that's a big difference. But there was kind of progressively pretty good linear relationship. So this was our, I think I repeated this. But the interesting thing is, so the previous result was not surprising. Better golfers chip better, okay? But now, when we compare how every golfer chipped using their favorite preferred wedge here in this graph versus their own hybrid versus a hybrid with the arm lock here, the interesting thing is that they made more points with their hybrid than with a wedge on average. So the entire population made more points relatively to what they would make. And even with the arm lock, they made almost as many points as with the hybrid with their regular grip. This was a real surprise. This to me was not a surprise. This confirmed our hypothesis. We didn't know what to expect. So, and when we see here, these were all our participants, our 40 participants in order of appearance. So this was our first participant and our last participant. So you could see that most of them made more points chipping with the hybrid and with the wedge. So these are positive points. Some made 60 more points with the hybrid and the wedge, and only a few, 5. So 35 made more points with the hybrid than the wedge, and 5 were almost even or better with the wedge. Now we're going to be looking at why. What are these different performances? And we are looking at 3 participants. One participant was a female, age 22, handicap 0.5. That was actually Esti, a member of the SFU team. she was very good. She was a really good chipper. Now the wedge is a dark blue, the hybrid is a light blue, and the arm lock, the hybrid is the green. And the leaf, you want it to be as small as possible, right? You want to put it as close to the pin as possible. And you can see here that Esty was actually better, was actually good with her wedge, but she was better here with a hybrid from the longer distance. Here she was just about the same. Here she was a little better with the hybrid, and here too, but a very small difference. And so this is the wedge. Sorry, this is the blue is the wedge, this is the hybrid. So she was better with the hybrid. Now this is a male participant, 14 handicap, so mid handicap. And he used a 64-degree wedge, which is the most sloped of all, which is really the most difficult to use consistently. And again, he was closer to the pin with the hybrid than with the wedge from all distances. Yeah, from all distances. And the arm lock, incredibly much better. So this is much better result from 40 feet with the hybrid arm lock. And this is a third golfer, a novice, but the general finding was the same, that the hybrid was better than the wedge, and the arm lock sometimes better, sometimes not. So these are three examples. So we looked at the biomechanics of the stroke and these three players. We looked at all of them, but we compared them here. And we can see, first of all, this is the typical swing. This is another participant, a male 27-year-old, to the farther target. You have to take a bigger swing with a wedge than with a hybrid. Because with a hybrid, it's more like a putting stroke. The ball doesn't have to go up so much. It goes straight forward. So, but you cannot hit it as hard because you're going to overshoot the green. And with a hybrid and arm lock, it's kind of similar, but a little bit bigger swing. Because when you use the arm lock, you're not using your wrists, which in chipping, you use your wrists quite a bit. But when you're not using your wrists and you're chipping off your shoulders, well, then the swing has to be a little longer. So we look at the same three participants as before. In terms of the two parameters, the actual shot length, of course, the targets were 10, 20, 30, 40 feet away. Where did the ball end up? Well, it ended up around 10, not bad. Here for the 20, well, there's a scatter here. There's 5 shots at each distance. The 30-foot, and here you see the 40-foot. Well, there was one big miss here, bigger miss. And this is the swing speed. So we can see how the actual shot length correlates with swing speed. With these three players, SD used a 56-degree wedge. Now this, the male player used a 64-degree wedge. You can see this, much bigger scatter. Some of these balls were hit with a much higher swing speed didn't even reach the target. These were short of target because the ball went way too up high and it was difficult to control the distance. A lot of effort goes into sending the ball up, right? And here is our third participant. We used a 52-degree wedge, which is not so severe, and had a pretty good lower swing speeds for reaching these targets. Okay, this was with the wedge, with their chosen wedge. Now, what about the hybrid? Now, you can see a difference here between performance with a wedge and performance with a hybrid. This is a much tighter relationship between swing speed and actual shot length, a more predictable relationship. Here, these 5 balls are very nicely bunched together around the 10-foot. Here's a 20-foot, here's a 30, and here's a little bit more scattered to the 40-foot. But the correlation coefficient, which is a measure of the goodness of fit, is incredibly high here. Pretty good here, too. Not so good here. These numbers, 1 is ideal. Now, our second participant with a 24-degree hybrid was actually better than with the wedge, but not nearly as good as ST. And our third participant, again, was pretty good. It was a higher handicap, greater than 36. But again, extremely good at placing these balls very close to the hole with the hybrid. And these are people who never used a hybrid before, okay? It's not like they were used to it. So this is quite an improvement over here in terms of accuracy. And with the arm lock, this is mind-blowing. This is even better correlation, higher. This very nice bunch of 5 points, punch here, here, and here. And look at our male with a 64-degree wedge, this big scatter. Look at this with a hybrid and the arm lock. It's very nice, very predictable. 4 shots at 10 feet, 4 shots at 20 feet, 4 at 30 feet, and 40 feet. Very nice, and very much lower swing speeds, and very nice, tight correlation between swing speed and the distance traveled. So much more predictable. And our last participant was also not bad at all with the hybrid arm lock. So the next thing is a lot of numbers, but it shows the same thing for the participants. But now we separate by low handicap participants to the 20 participants with the lower handicaps and the 20 participants with the higher handicaps to see which group would benefit more or if it's the same. And more or less the same finding. Both the low handicap and the high handicap participants did best with their hybrid. That is, the average leave was the lowest. That's what you want. And that's in every part of the study, pretty much. And the significance of the differences is enormous. So these are not just very close values. They're really different values. 6.7 average leave versus 10.7 feet average leave. That's not random. So, but the highest handicap golfers had more significant gains because the reason is that the lower handicap golfers are already very good chippers with their wedge. Otherwise, they wouldn't be low handicap golfers, right? So it's the high handicap golfers who have real problems. Most people have real problems chipping that have the biggest improvement using the hybrid instead of the wedge. And the hybrid with arm lock, surprisingly, was the best overall from the shortest distance, 10-foot distance, for both the high handicap and the low handicap. So this was a real revelation. That if you're chipping from 10 feet away off the green, try arm lock. Now there's one golfer who keeps winning is Matt Fitzpatrick. I don't know if you have noticed, but he chips with a wedge, but he uses a reverse grip, almost an arm lock. He uses a dominant hand high instead of low. Anyway, and he is a really good chipper. He's the only one I know that uses something close to this. So here in this study for chipping, we didn't find big differences in terms of older versus younger, or male versus female, or even yippers versus non-yippers. We just found that most people, 35 out of 40, benefited from chipping with the hybrid. So that's our main conclusion. So we recommend chipping with a hybrid unless you can't. Like if you have to, again, fly the ball over an obstacle, for example. And we like to thank the Pitt Meadows Golf Club for allowing us to use the chipping greens and all the participants. And again, I don't know if Klaus is still here.
Yeah, he's still here.
So this is then the second write-up that Golf Digest did. I don't know if you saw it, but they did a write-up on the chipping study too. And they said, you should do this if you're bad at chipping. It helps 86% of golfers. Actually, they made an error because it's really 87.5% of golfers, I think. 35 divided by 40. But anyway, it was very nice. And they did a podcast too. Trouble with your short game? Try this. So here are the links if you like to see them. Anyway, that was the second talk. And what time is it?
It's 6:15, so perfect timing for some questions.
Pretty good, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so please, anyone, if you have any questions, I'm going to kick us off. Something I love to ask in all of these is, in this research, what was the most surprising part to you? Like, what findings was the most surprising?
So I think that in the putting study, the surprising thing, but in retrospect, you can see why, was that only people who were yippers or had tremors really benefited from the arm lock, and other golfers, some did. Well, 25% of other golfers, non-yippers, also benefited, but it's not that this putter or this style should be outlawed because it should be illegal because it's not fair. It's not true. It's not an improvement for people who are already good putters with a standard putter, but it does make life easier for golfers who have problems. So physiological tremors. So that was a surprising thing. And then the surprising thing in the chipping was that arm lock chipping works at all. And that is the best. That was the biggest surprise for short distances. The problem that the reason it's not the best for 40 feet is that you have to swing harder. And it gets to be a little bit more of a challenge. But for shorter distances, chipping with the arm lock is fantastic. It's easy. It's easier to do well. So
Amazing. Yeah, so if anyone in the audience wants to ask questions, you're actually able to unmute yourself now. So please feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you might have. Yeah, well, we have our expert with us still.
Andy, thanks again for a great presentation there. It's always interesting to see what you're coming up with. Did you look at the differences between a balanced putter versus a unbalanced putter?
well, that's a tricky thing to try to do because we asked. Well, we in the putting study we did not ask people to bring their own putter, so we had just our own standard putter, which was a Ping Answer replica. That was a cheaper version that we modified one of them, and it's an older design, so it's not one of the latest designs of putter at all. So the putter design can have an influence, but that's a big study to do because you have many variables that you want to look at too, right? But we
But
didn't.
was that putter, was that balanced?
Was it balanced? I think it is balanced. You mean
Because
balanced
that
in
would
the
have a
sense that
huge impact for a person who's used to an unbalanced putter and makes more of a rounded swing compared to somebody who swings in a very straight line with a balanced putter, right?
maybe, but the putter properties were fairly similar for the standard length and the arm lock.
Okay.
So at least that didn't change very much, although it could have been modified a little bit. But yeah, it's a good point. There are many variables.
Right.
I think perhaps on those lines, there's a question in the chat here asking about center shafted versus heel shafted.
Yeah, again, we didn't. This one is, let's see, I have a picture to go back. Maybe not. But this one is closer to center shafted, the ones we tested. But yeah, and I think that's a better design in terms of preventing small angle changes would have less impact, negative impact. Yeah.
Alrighty, we have a couple more minutes if anyone has any last questions.
I have a question about, I missed most of the presentation, unfortunately, but will I be able to find this online somewhere?
Yes, great question.
Yeah.
You will. So, you know, usually it takes us a couple days to get it up on the website, but it is being recorded. So once you get the video, and make sure, you know, trim any little extra bits of us setting up and that kind of stuff, it will be posted. Both, you can find it kind of two pretty easy ways. If you just look up like Cafe Scientifique at SFU, there's a link to kind of all the previous ones and it'll be posted there. And it's also posted on the SFU Faculty of Science YouTube page. So both ways. And when we send our follow-up email, there'll be information about that as well. So yes, yes, is the short answer.
That's often. I think I'm probably going to throw away all of my wedges tomorrow and just use the hybrid. Thank you.
You know, Chris, at Pitt Meadows, we used to have once a year, around this time of year, a one club tournament where it's quite challenging, but you are allowed to bring only one club. And if you bring a hybrid, that's the best of all clubs to bring because it can hit it off the tee pretty well, but you can putt with it very well too. So
I'll be curious to hear, Chris, how your golf game improves. Looks like we have another question here in the chat. What about oversized putter grips for people with yips and tremors versus regular size putter grips? Could that potentially be helpful if they don't want to
yeah.
try the arm lock?
So I think so. And in our study, the two putters that we provided, we had them upgraded to fat grips, the super stroke grips, both. The arm lock had a longer grip, like 17 inches, I think, but also the regular length putter, we put an oversized grip so that would not that would take away that advantage. I think there is an advantage to it, but both of those putters had a oversized grip.
So the arm lock definitely helps, and the oversize, you know, helps more than a
Yeah,
regular one, but doesn't quite get you all the way there. But I might be a
but
nice
it's
alternative to try if you.
but it's not the reason for the difference we found because our short standard length grip putter also had an oversized grip, oversized width. Yeah. Good.
Wonderful.
Yeah, good questions. Thank you.
Yeah, these are great questions. Yeah, so kind of last call for questions. Just give it a quick second. Well, great. If anyone does think of anything, you know, you're in bed tonight and you're like, oh, I should have asked that, please just feel free to reach out via email and
Yeah,
we can get in touch.
yeah.
And
You
make
can
sure.
also email me easily.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. Andy's contact is also available on the website, or you can just reply to the email that you got from us with the information about the event tonight, and we can get you in touch as well. Um, but many thanks to Dr. Hoffer for sharing your expertise and knowledge and your passion with us tonight.
right.
This was so interesting. My husband had to work tonight, but I will be definitely giving him my notes on the talk to improve his golf game. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening. It's always so lovely to have such an engaged group with us. And I hope to see many of you at our next Café Scientifique, which will be in October. So
Thank you,
good night.
Stevie. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.